Let's talk about stimulus checks and inflation in 2024 and 2025. As earlier in the week, I let you know that we had heard from the IRS. You can see right here, December 20th, 2024, that they had announced special payments would be going out this month to 1 million taxpayers who did not claim their 2021 recovery rebate credit. And we saw headlines coming out like this. Take a look. Who qualifies for the $1,400 IRS stimulus checks? Why are they being sent out? And here's what to know. Now, we are hearing that these are checks for those that might have missed payments from the previous stimulus checks. So if you missed one of the three that went out, this is going to be you. These are going to be going out. However, we're hearing that a lot of people are actually criticizing this, saying, why is it that Biden is doing this on his way out? And why is this happening now as we are seeing a transition of power, as this is going to be just causing more inflation? And we're hearing that these are going to be automatic, so people don't need to do anything. They're just going to be receiving these checks in the mail, and a lot of people not happy about it. As take a look at this, I'm going to share with you some video footage and articles. Elon Musk blames excessive government spending for inflation. Do experts agree? And let me ask you this, do you agree? Were the stimulus checks good? Did they help you out? Or do you think that they did more harm than good with all of the inflation that came afterwards? And now we're hearing that there could be another round of this. A lot of people very unhappy with this new round of billions of dollars going out in stimulus. Was it good? If so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But Elon Musk, who is in charge of DOGE now, the Department of Government Efficiency, that's going to be holding the government accountable to make sure that they are not just frivolously spending, is saying this is not good, that the stimulus and all of this stuff and some of the frivolous spending by Congress is causing massive inflation. We need to cut back and we need to monitor how it is the government is doing all this spending. Somebody needs to hold the government accountable. And they are saying they don't like this. They don't like that this is happening at this time. Now, like I said, a lot of people asking the question, though, what about Social Security? What about those that are depending on these fixed income benefits from the program that they paid into their entire lives? A lot of people saying this is not an entitlement program. This is something that people have paid into. It is a earned income that they should be able to count on and collect. And a lot of people saying, hey, what is going on with the Social Security Fairness Act? We finally saw a piece of legislation after years and years and years make its way through Congress, passed in the House, just passed in the Senate. And we just saw Biden this past week go on a piece of legislation spree, passing 50 bills, did not sign into law the Social Security Fairness Act. This is making several people nervous. Just take a look. Are you one of the 2.8 million Americans who could benefit from the Social Security Fairness Act? This coming out on the 27th, but we are yet to see this key piece of legislation be signed into law. He still has not signed it, and time is running short. And this piece of legislation is also calling for back payments. So if you miss payments and you're one of the 2.8 million people that this is going to impact, this is going to help you out. However, we're hearing still hasn't been signed. And a lot of people are saying, hey, where are you at, Joe Biden? Why are you delaying and waiting until the last minute? Can we please get this done before we run into an issue here? And like I said, if you want to get more on that later on, stick around to the end. I'm going to give you some more updates on Social Security as well. But a lot of concerns and a lot of people saying, hey, not only that, but this is not fair for all the other people that need help on this as well, as they're saying that there have been a lot of shortcomings in the promises from President Biden on Social Security, and we need to see across the board increases, a change from the CPIW to the CPIE, and we also need to stop the double taxation. People have paid into this their entire lives, taxed, and then when they pull from it, they're taxed yet again. And this is one of the things that we've heard President-elect Donald Trump say that he is going to be addressing in his administration. So keep an eye on the You've Earned It, You Keep It Act. We're hearing that that could be the next one coming up for Social Security in the upcoming Congress. But let me go ahead and get you caught up on the latest, as we are hearing that these checks, $1,400 stimulus checks, they are hitting right now people's bank accounts and mailboxes, but not everybody is happy about them. And I see a lot of no's coming in the comments, people saying, no, this was not good. This was inflationary, and it hurt the economy for the most part. So let me know your thoughts. Now, in addition to that, while you're putting those yeses and those nos, do me a favor, take a second if you haven't done so yet. Hit that like button for me. That simple click just takes a moment and helps the channel out a ton, spreads this out further so more people can get the latest updates. And also, in addition to that, if you want to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not? I'll keep you up to speed on everything so you know exactly what is going on. I'll put up the latest videos. I will cite all the articles, put them on the screen, read right from them. They are hyperlinked in the description. I try to hold myself to the highest level of accountability here on my channel to my community so that way you can rest assured this is the latest information. You can see it for yourself and trust and know that it is what is going on. So again, if you appreciate that, hit that like button for me, subscribe to stay up to date. These articles are linked down below along with additional resources for you as well. But let's go ahead and get right to it so you can see the latest with what is going on with these $1,400 stimulus checks going out to those that missed some previous checks. But a lot of people saying they are not happy because this is an additional $2 billion of funding that is going out, and this is going to cause a little bit more inflation. Let's go ahead and take a look and get you caught up on the latest.
So as if we needed another example of Biden's last-minute spending spree, here's another one. The Biden IRS has sent out $2.4 billion in COVID emergency stimulus checks this week, about 2 years after the COVID emergency ended. Really? Joining me now is North Dakota Senator Kevin Kramer. Senator, yeah, you shake your head. That's all you can do about this stuff. Fortunately, it's not all we can do come January 20th. But I gotta say, adding insult to injury, we get this from the retiring IRS Commissioner Danny Werfel, excuse me. He said, to minimize headaches and get this money to eligible taxpayers, we're making these payments automatic, meaning these people will not be required to go through the extensive process of filing an amended return to receive it. So bottom line is they're just throwing money out the window.
Yeah, I guess they didn't get the whole inflation is a bad thing memo, David, and we're responsible for it. They seem to have missed that one as well. It's really quite ludicrous to think that 1 million people who didn't ask for the money, didn't apply for it when it was, supposedly available in 2021 tax returns, that now somehow they're just going to force it on them. And who knows for sure if it's even true? Who knows? But by true, I mean, who knows if they're even eligible, or if they're really supposed to be getting it, or if this is just some sort of last-minute stunt to drive up inflation as Donald Trump comes in to the White House. I don't know, but it's one of the crazier things. And just imagine, this is with 87,000 new IRS employees that the first fuel on the fire of inflation in the American Rescue Plan created, so they could go after more taxpayers. I mean, it's why we're where we are, and it's why Donald Trump's going to be president soon.
And by the way, those tens of thousands of extra IRS where they're not just going to be going over a small number of millionaires and billionaires. They're going for the middle class. They're going for the small businesses, the pass-through businesses. They're the ones that are going to get hit the hardest and have to, even if they're completely innocent, they'll have to take months off of their business schedule to fill all these forms. And concerning COVID, I don't want to leave COVID completely, because does anybody even know how much money is left in some of those COVID funds?
Well, and I think that's part of what's at stake, David, is I don't know how much there is. I don't think anybody knows exactly how much there is, but a lot of what is left is what they're trying to get rid of quickly so that it doesn't become, say, a pay for some tax cuts, or pay for some regulatory, cuts in various agencies. There are just all kinds of ways, better ways to utilize any leftover COVID money than just to simply give it to people and drive up inflation. So no, I don't know, but I would hope that's one of the things that the DOGE committee gets after, and that Congress itself gets after.
And then we have this horribly named Inflation Reduction Act, which was essentially, at least Biden admitted, it was essentially a green energy act. That's what it amounted to. Billions and billions just peppered with all of these subsidies. I shouldn't say just billions, tens, even hundreds of billions of dollars in these various subsidies. I think even as much as they'd love to spend money before they leave, even the Biden administration can't spend all that money. Should we claw all that money back?
I believe that we should claw a lot of it back, and what we ought to do is repurpose some of those dollars.
Yes.
Some of it's not necessary at all. Some of it might be better utilized in somewhere else. There are a lot of the
building a wall, like building more of a border wall.
There you have it. there you have it. Let's do that. And by the way, that would cost much less than putting up a whole bunch of electric vehicle charging stations where nobody drives electrical vehicles, or turning our entire energy grid over to China's supply chain or whatever the case might be. There's a whole lot we can be doing, and I can't wait to get started on it.
Now, we mentioned already in the show the DOGE recommendations that are coming up. We're already seeing some of them drip out, but how is that going to be picked up by Congress? How will that be put into action?
Yeah, it's a great question, because DOGE doesn't have authority, but what they do have is influence. Yes. And so you're like you said, they're already dripping some things out. These are big things. I actually think it adds value to the work of the appropriators and the budgeters and the Congress by providing both political cover and, by the way, some political exposure to a lot of the waste. I love one of the first ideas I read about, of course, is the simplification of the tax code. And therein lies one of our first opportunities with the new Congress through budget reconciliation. The simplification of the tax code could be the greatest gift to the economy and to every taxpayer in this country, and certainly to business.
By the way, that's Steve Forbes' idea. Get rid of all deductions for everybody, just have a simple flat tax. You think Congress is ready for something that revolutionary?
Well, I don't think that they are. I love the idea of a flat tax, but a flatter tax would even be better, because right now we have these 7 brackets. I think when the House passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, when I was in the House in 2017, we were down to 3 brackets. The Senate brought it back up to 7 brackets. And there are ramifications to the transition and all of those things, David. But there's no question. Simpler is better. It costs a lot less. It unleashes economic opportunity. The tax code itself is one of the worst regulations on every taxpayer in the country, unless, of course, you're a CPA or a tax lawyer. It's pretty good for your economy.
But you can't wait on these things, Senator Kramer. Don't you agree? Yeah. You have to. The tax extensions have to be at the front of the line, or at least side by side some of the border policies that we need. No?
It's an interesting point. What I worry a little bit about, David, is particularly given what we've been through the last few weeks, just trying to get the government funded for a few more months. You see how complex this big machine is. And when you start dealing with something as big as the tax code, it's going to take a little while. We know that. But at the same time, the border crisis is an immediate crisis. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act don't expire till the end of the year. What I worry about is if we begin the tax portion,
the end of the year isn't far off.
I know.
And also Americans voted for something. It is a complex deal. I understand putting together a tax plan is a very complex deal, but you have a president who wants it, and you have a president who now has more power than he did after he won the election. 51% approval rating, according to Gallup, we heard today. So more Americans want him to do changes now, and because they want money in their pocket. You can't wait that long on these tax extensions.
Sure. Well, the money in their pocket won't change until next year anyway. But having said that, just remember, Congress operates, they do, you're right, and there's no question it creates momentum. And that's true. And we ought to be working on it as we are right now through the end of the year, if that's what it takes. But Congress generally operates best on deadlines, not starting points. So if we start on January 4th or July 4th or August 4th, it seems like we always end up at the end of September. Having said all of that, there are a lot of things to do, whether we do them all at once or do them in tranches. I'm for all of it. We need to go big. But remember, if we get to simplifying, if we put Steve Moore in charge of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act extensions and he came up with a flat tax, that shouldn't take very long.
Well, there's only one person who needs to be in charge, and we know who that is. It's Donald Trump. It's the man who can kick the entire Congress, both the House and the Senate, in the rear end and get them moving. Nobody's been in power until he comes in January 20. I mean, nobody's in power right now. So we need somebody to do that. We're way over time. Senator, great to see you. Thank you very much for being here. Hope you had a great Christmas.
There you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. You heard them say that this was going to be inflationary, and that although this was good during the pandemic, this was a promise that was made during the pandemic. That now the pandemic is well behind us, and they're saying that why is this coming out at this time? Now, one of the things I wanted to address was that during that clip and that segment, I'm not sure if you heard, they said how much COVID money is actually left. Does anybody even know? And the individual in the interview said, no, I don't know, and I don't know if anybody knows. Well, I can tell you that we actually do know. I've been checking on this throughout the pandemic, making sure that you guys are aware of everything that's taking place. So let me pull it up for you so that way you can see. This is the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. This is the COVID money tracker that tracks specifically the government's allocated funds for distribution throughout the course of the pandemic. And you can see here the COVID money tracker explore the data and track the trillions of dollars of federal spending, tax cuts, loans, grants, and subsidies authorized and dispersed in the wake of the COVID pandemic and economic crisis. So he's asking the question, how much money is actually left over? What is available? Well, here it is for you right here. You can see administrative action. Approximately $1 trillion was allocated or allowed, and of that, roughly $900 billion was dispersed. Legislative action. You can see from Congress, these are the stimulus checks and stimulus packages. These are the ones right here in the orange. They had said that they were going to send out $6.2 trillion during the pandemic to help people out through the difficult times. There were so many issues during the pandemic where people couldn't work, businesses couldn't operate, stimulus checks were needed. All of these were given $6.2 trillion, and of that, they have distributed $5.9 trillion, which means there currently remains available from previous stimulus packages $300 billion. So $300 billion has been made available from the COVID-19 stimulus package funds. There are $300 billion that still remains. So we're hearing that they are going to be sending out roughly, I think it was $2 billion. But let me ask you this. What happens to the $300 billion that is sitting in the coffers? What happens to those funds? What are we going to be doing with that? How is it going to be distributed, allocated? This is already set aside by Congress. Congress holds the power of the purse, not the president. And this essentially could be reused for something else. And I saw an interesting comment in the live chat right now. Somebody said, well, they're going to be sending out these checks several years later after the COVID pandemic is over. What about the people in North Carolina that couldn't get any assistance or help? What do you think about that? Let me know your thoughts. Now, just to give you an idea of how much $300 billion is, we can go ahead and scroll down here on this COVID money tracker and see the various amounts of funds that have been set aside for each and every type of support that was provided. And you can see here under legislative action, here's business support, income support, state and local funding, where states actually receive funds to help them through the pandemic, and direct payments, aka stimulus checks or EIPs, economic impact payments. You can see that all the stimulus checks, all three rounds that went out to everybody in the nation, accounted for roughly $859 billion. And here's a breakdown of those checks. You can see stimulus check number one was $1,200 per person. I believe it was $600 for dependents. $276 billion. So if we have $300 billion left over, that means we literally have enough to send out another round of that first stimulus check of $1,200 per person, $600 per dependent. We could literally do that again from not new money, but money that's just sitting in these accounts that was meant to go out. So there are leftover funds still just sitting there. Now, let me know your thoughts. Do you think this is good or bad? Again, is stimulus good right now? If you think so, put yes. If you would like to see another round of stimulus, there's literally enough to send out that first check. Once again, put no if you think no. Listen, $1,200 would be nice per person, whatever. However, at this time, inflation has been devastating people, especially those on fixed income benefits like Social Security, retirement, SSI, SSDI. Stop the inflationary movement of the funds. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, you can see the second round of stimulus checks was $600 per person and per dependent. That was a $165 billion price tag. And that final stimulus check that we saw go out in 2022, $418 billion for that $1,400 per person that went out. So like I said, we have roughly enough that we could do that first $1,200 stimulus check again. Not the third one of $1,400, but we do have enough to send that out once again, just sitting in the coffers. So they asked the question, does anybody know how much is left? What is available to the American public? Yes, we do. It is at covidmoneytracker.com for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. This is actually made public so you can see exactly what is going on for transparency purposes. However, most people don't realize what's going on. And as I track it, I've watched it over the years go down and down and down, and I haven't seen any announcements about new things, so I'm not really sure what's happening. I see the accounts in there, but I don't see where the money is being distributed to. Money just suddenly goes missing, and I don't know why. I don't see any explanation for why it suddenly drops. But I've been keeping an eye on it, and I can tell you right now, according to the latest COVID money tracker, and they do a pretty good job of keeping it up to date, there's still $300 billion of leftover taxpayer funds still just sitting there. And let me know again, do you think that stimulus checks in 2024, 2025 that are going out right now, is this good? If yes, put yes. If no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, in addition to that, as I mentioned, though, this announcement came out on, you can see, December 20th of 2024. So a little bit over a week or so ago, the IRS had announced that these were going to be going out. These were going to be for those that did not claim the 2021 recovery rebate credit. So if you missed out on previous stimulus checks, now is your time. And that is why we saw the headlines coming out saying $1,400 stimulus checks. This is likely from the third one. You could get up to $1,400 checks, and they said that this is going to be automatically applied. You don't need to do anything. Now, at the same time, you heard them vocalize the criticism of this, saying, why is this happening? This was supposed to be for pandemic assistance. The pandemic has well passed. This is not going to be good. This is just simply going to cause inflation. Let's take a look at this article coming out from Go Banking Rates and from the NASDAQ, that they're going to be discussing how Elon Musk blames the excessive government spending for inflation that is taking place right now. And do you agree? Now, this came out, you can see December 28th today. In November, Elon Musk fired off a X post placing all of the blame for excess government spending on inflation. He also referred to all government spending as taxation. While income taxes are direct taxation, other taxes are indirect, such as higher money supply that comes from heightened government spending. So he said when the government spends frivolously, you are being taxed on the increase on prices for goods that you don't realize. This is an indirect tax to the people, and that is inflation. How the government's response to COVID led to higher inflation, he says. Now, Melanie Munson is a finance expert with insuranceproviders.com, and she explained how COVID spending set the stage for higher inflation rates. Now, in the post-COVID government spending, the public was given money. That meant that there was a shift in supply and demand. The extra money meant that people could demand products, but there wasn't an accompanying increase in products, which meant that prices increased for consumer products that were in higher demand. The government printed money to fund spending, while the overall true wealth of the country remained the same. More cash made up the same amount of wealth. That meant that every dollar became worth less, and we saw inflation where your dollars could buy less. Victor, thank you for the $2 super chat. Hola, we illegals need stimulus. Thank you, Americans, he says. Yeah, that is... thank you for that $2 super chat. Yeah, and I think that is what a lot of people are feeling right now, is that like a lot of money is going out to those that are illegals, and they're saying, hey, what about America first type policies? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you agree, and we heard a lot of these vocalized by Donald Trump, put a 47 in the comments for Donald Trump. Now, when more dollars chase the same amount of goods, those goods become more expensive. Consumers saw this trend play out in various everyday expenses such as housing and groceries. Government spending doesn't always translate into runaway inflation, though. Marko Bajevic is a CEO and founder of Arkomina Consulting, a company that specializes in U.S. macroeconomics and market research. He explained how some government spending doesn't always translate into higher inflation rates. Higher government spending doesn't always increase inflation unless it directly ends up with customers or consumers, helicopter money, or similar. If any government spending was enough to increase inflation, then the big deal during the 1930s would have resulted in higher inflation. Still, negative inflation or deflation remained the primary issue throughout the whole decade. However, Bojovic isn't vindicating the government and highlighted how government spending has elevated inflation in recent years. Everything else politicians do, including regulation, legislation, tariffs, and direct meddling in the economy, increases inflation. In 2020 and 2021, inflation was the result of many things introduced by politicians, including lockdowns, helicopter money or handouts, travel restrictions, vaccine mandates, and everything that disrupted the moving of goods and people, he said. Three Willows, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. Take the money and build the wall. And that is actually what we had heard in that interview. They said, why not take that money and use it to help construct the wall to keep our borders safe? Let me know if you agree with that. If you do, put a 47 in the comments for Donald Trump. Now, what else drives inflation? The federal government's policies can change the money supply and the movement of people. While the government wields a lot of power in determining inflation rates, they aren't the only factor. While both experts mention that other factors exist, they still pinpointed excessive government spending as a major catalyst for inflation. There are many factors at work, including population growth and money supply, but also everything the government does. Going forward, some new measures like tariffs could have a potentially challenging impact on inflation, he stated. Government spending was the primary factor driving inflation over the past few years. There are other factors involved. The other factors may have added to the inflation, but the bottom line is that the government bears the responsibility, he explained. Thank you, Victor. He says, the wall is too expensive. Give it to the illegals instead. Thank you for that $2 super chat, Victor, and I appreciate the comments. It is a good laugh today. Now, the Department of Government Efficiency. Can DOGE bring inflation under control? Elon Musk has suggested the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, can curb government spending and get inflation under control. He also believes that DOGE can result in a net surplus and get the government back on track to paying off its debts. Both experts have expressed caution, mentioning unintended consequences and the roadblocks DOGE can face in Congress, adding another department, even when focused on efficiency, will likely increase government spending. If the department truly had the authority to keep other departments from spending, it could lower inflation. It's not likely, though, Munson stated. They would need Congress's approval, assuming they get it, and that the spending is cut by $2 trillion. As Elon Musk has said, this could have some adverse economic effects, potentially leading to deflation and a severe recession. It is questionable how long Elon will have Trump's support for fiscal austerity if people start losing jobs uncontrollably, Bejovic explained. So there you have it. Now, let me know your thoughts. And I've heard a lot of people say this, that nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to be the one that is going to do the spending cuts, take funds away, and cause a deflationary recession where, similar to what we saw with the Great Depression, where nobody could afford anything. Prices started and values started going down. The money value went up. They're saying that could be the adverse repercussions of this as opposed to the inflation. And they're saying that nobody really wants to be that person. But we will see, because they're saying that if we keep going down this road, eventually here, this is going to get out of control, and there are going to be some devastating economic impacts to the United States with runaway inflation. So we will see if we can reel it in, yet at the same time, it's going to be painful to pull it back. People like when money's flowing in, even if it's handouts. People like getting those stimulus checks, that little extra assistance. However, they don't like afterwards when the prices of goods as a result suddenly shoot up. And so we will see, because now we're hearing the critics are coming out saying that right now, December 2024 and going into January of 2025, there's 2.8 million Americans, 1 million Americans that are going to be receiving roughly $2.something billion worth of funds that are going out for missed stimulus checks. And they're saying this is going to cause even more inflation. Now, speaking of 2.8 million, we are hearing, though, take a look at this. Social Security Fairness Act is supposed to go into effect, and there's supposed to be some changes on the way. And going into 2025, we're going to be seeing some changes that are going to be taking place. And these are also, as I mentioned, supposed to be retroactive back payments that are going to be coming in with the Social Security Fairness Act. But a lot of people saying this is simply not enough. That those that depend on Social Security, they need more. They need to make sure that they are helping out everybody, not just a small group. They need increases across the board, stop the double taxation, change the CPIW to the CPIE. In addition to that, we have a solvency issue. We're hearing that the entire program is going to be running out of funds in roughly the next 8 to 12 years, and they're not going to be able to pay out 100% of benefits to those receiving it, including retirement, SSI, SSDI, all of the fixed income benefits that people collect from Social Security. So they're saying they have got to fix it, because if not, there are going to be across the board cuts of roughly 75 to 80%. So if you collect $1,000 from the Social Security Administration, let's just say for retirement, suddenly you get a check for $750 or $800. And when you look at it and you ask them, hey, what happened to my check? I just got cut by about $250. They're simply going to say, sorry, we just don't have enough to pay out 100% of the benefits. You're just out of luck. This is happening to everybody. So we have got to see major reform happen to Social Security. So if you want to get more updates on that, as we're hearing, there are going to be some changes happening in 2025 and some new legislation on the way with the Trump administration. I'll go ahead and pin a video so that way you can check that out as well. But you guys, that is the latest on stimulus checks, what's going on with the economy and inflation, and I'll be sure to keep you up to date as more comes out. That is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Hit the like button if you haven't done so yet. Subscribe to stay up to date, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.